back. NGO Elam Empowerment is calling for menstrual dignity for imprisoned women. According to founder Siphesihle Ndwandwe, women in prisons have been neglected. She joins me now to chat more. Siphesihle, thank you so much for joining us this morning on Newsfeed AM. Well, we do know that access to sanitary pads and also period dignity is a big problem for many girl children in the country, but also for incarcerated women. Tell us about some of the research that you've done into this.
Sure. So what we did was, what initially had happened is we found out about what was happening with the women in prisons in Nigeria. And that is a very dire situation. And so we started looking into research specifically here. And what we found is that some of the prisons don't seem to have as much of a system going as others. And so with the research paper that we found, they basically speak to the fact that the menstrual health and menstrual hygiene in prisons is not a priority because we mainly have male prisons, and so the bulk of the budget kind of goes towards the male prisons. And so what remains is kind of a little bit, and therefore it's just not a priority within the budgeting of the carceral systems. And so when we then reached out to different prisons, we discovered that there isn't even a set system within the penal prisons. Some have a very healthy, robust budget for menstrual pads for the prisoners. And so they even have like tendering systems for the pads, but others are really struggling to keep up with the demand from the prisoners for pads.
And also, we do know that periods are not only accompanied, not only need sanitary pads, but also medication, because sometimes they're accompanied with period pains as well. Did you find that there was access to this kind of medication in prisons as well?
So what we found in terms of our research was that the medical professionals in the prisons don't necessarily give, painkillers to the prisoners, unfortunately.
So, I mean, there was a report done, a study done in 2012 in conjunction at UCT, the Women's Pathways to Prison Project, and there you also cite in your research as well that it was found that if they were lucky, most women were only getting 2 pads per day for their period. With that research that you continue to do post-2012 and that research report, have you found that there's been an increase in this? Are the women able to get more sanitary pads as well? Because I can't imagine that 2 pads a day would be sufficient.
It isn't sufficient at all. And what we've seen is that, so because of what I said earlier, different prisons have different processes. So the prisons that that research unit was looking into was probably in Cape Town, and they have a different system to the ones in KZN, to the ones in Gauteng. And so what we found is that they generally give as and when the inmates need, but unfortunately when the supply runs low, so with the specific prison that we have been working with, which is Hoshimampuru in Pretoria, when we contacted them, there was great relief in the lady's voice because she said that they were actually running low on the stock, and what they would then have to do is go out and look for civil organizations like us to reach out in terms of asking for assistance with getting more pads.
So it's then left up to your kinds of organizations to then help the justice system in basically taking care of these women, which is something that is very natural. So where do you then find the funds and the resources as an NGO to then do that?
So what we did was that we actually just ran a pad drive and kind of reached out to our network. And within the 2 weeks that we had run that pad drive, we were able to get about 132 diapers, 240 baby wipes, because there are also babies within the prison, and about 90 packs of pads, which is close to 800 pads, and as well as a box then filled with baby clothes. And so now we're kind of trying to do it on a larger scale in terms of we've got more time, and we're trying to get buy-in from organizations as well to get a bigger supply of pads, while we also then fight for the minister to actually prioritize this in the budgeting.
And if you could describe that fight with the ministry as well to try and prioritize this as well, what is it like? Was it a bit of a tussle?
So unfortunately, the start of our campaign kind of coincided with the ending of the previous minister's term. And so we're just, kind of sitting and waiting, as we all know, for the appointment of the new ministers. Then we'll be able to take it up with the minister. But we've been so long running the campaign on change.org to get as many signatures as possible. Then we will submit that along with the pads to the prison, and then kind of take that information to the minister.
Well, really important work that you are doing. So all the best to you. And thank you so much for highlighting this issue as well. That was Siphesihle Ndwandwe, who is from the NGO Elam Empowerment.